And so many people interested in this topic today. My name is Alana Wiens. I'm the director of our Family Economic Security Program here at Housatonic Community College.
My name is Lindsay Norton, and I'm a counselor here at the college.
I'm Carmen Medina. I'm with BEST here at the college in the registrar's office.
And as an added bonus today, the student that was assigned to us here to help out in the classroom is also one of our best students, so we have an extra speaker and a bonus for all of you. I know you're here because you see this challenge every day in our colleges, but this was an infographic. I know it's a little fuzzy, that I saw a few weeks ago that really got to me and brought it all in focus. Here we have our students separated by those coming with below average test scores, those coming in from with above average test scores, broken out by the richest group, upper middle, bottom middle, and poorest students. If you look at the orange dot, that says that the students that are coming in from the richest group with below average test scores, 30% complete college. And then you come over here and you look at the poorest students with above average test scores, have a 26% college completion rate. That's a real, to me, that really got to me, the fact that even though they're coming in with all this intelligence, doing really well on all the tests, that there's that much of a difference in our completion rates. Those are national. So today, not knowing who exactly was going to be in the room, we're looking at this from three different perspectives. The first is if you're an individual who's looking to make a difference and wants to try to adapt how you're doing things. The second is if you're looking to build a program. We'll look particularly at our Family Economic Security Program here. And the third is looking at it from a college-wide perspective and changes in terms of systems. We also have a group exercise at the end for help with implementation, as well as some time for question and answer. Lindsay.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the individual approach. I am a counselor here. And I would kind of separate our presentation. Mine's a little bit more qualitative, and Alana's going to talk a little bit more quantitatively. But I work with students on a one-to-one basis. And it's really important as a counselor and an advisor is to understand who your population is. So with our first generation low income, and I'll explain, I did come from a TRIO background, so that's the population I worked with primarily, is redefining the concept of the learner. So I really want to bring that non-traditional student over to the traditional. And what I mean by that is, one, identifying who they are and asking questions as, are they working? Do they have a family? How many hours are they working? And what type of activities they have outside. So looking at it as a systems perspective and understanding all those systems that impact that student. And removing the stigma. So that talks about assumptions and biases that we carry as individuals, but understanding this population really requests that you take a look at all of the barriers that these students can come up against. So I just wanted to talk about biases like understanding that not all students can purchase or have money for books. So those pieces are really important when you're working with this particular population and asking those questions. So I think everyone's heard of the term holistic advising, the intrusive advising. There's a lot of actually terms going back and forth in the advising field. But my approach is first advise, educate, and then advocate. So when you're treating every student as they need guidance, navigating the college system. So understanding that higher education comes with a set of vocabulary that first generation college students don't always understand. First generation college students have parents, college students have parents that have had that experience and that are able to talk to them about that vocabulary, like credits, attempted credits versus earned credits. So understanding how to navigate that system with this student. Understanding content and direction, not length when you're meeting with a student. Not looking at time, but what information you're going to cover. And again, always checking in with the student and asking them, are they understanding, and checking for processing. So advocacy, that's a big part of holistic advising. With this particular population, self-advocacy is not a skill, it's a skill that you learn in your home. So I work with these students and I ask them, and actually this is a great question to ask them, and I always start my sessions with them, is what do you need to be successful at Housatonic Community College? And it's usually get a pause, and sometimes they don't know they are coming in as a first generation college students, or they haven't had that experience. So then I break that down and we talk about ways that they are successful already in their life at home. And then I try to connect that to school. So that's my strengths perspective, identifying strengths outside of school. The other strategy I use a lot is role play. And I use the scenario, how do you talk to your professor? We actually role play, and I have a script that I use with students. How do you advocate for yourself within your department? And those are really important pieces because there's some type of transparency with students and the professor, like, can I talk to them? Yes, and how do I talk to them? And they are people and they're really invested in their subjects, so I want students really to connect with their department. And then another piece that I always check in with when students leave is exploring how they can become involved in campus. So I pull up all the clubs. Kelly is our student service director here and student activities, and she sends out weekly emails, so when students come in, I'm always checking that and saying, okay, what can you get involved in this week? And how can we connect you on campus so they're part of the community? And that goes back to bringing them from the non-traditional to the traditional. Okay, and then the last piece of holistic advising is educating. Identifying campus supports before they need them, moving from rather than the reactive to the proactive, being reactive and moving to proactive. And an example of that is connecting them with financial aid. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my strategies with students in different staff in different departments. But connecting them with the academic support center before they need them. And so that can be as simple as walking the student down to the academic support center and putting a name to the department. Discuss program expectations. I want to take out the mystery, in particular with the nursing students and the science majors, is all those prerequisites. So demystifying and taking a look at, okay, you need an anatomy and physiology for your admission, but what prerequisites do you need before that? So letting it be transparent for the student. And again, I'm always looking at how I can think for the student. So the last strategy is identifying your champions and cheerleaders in each department. So Housatonic's pretty small. So we actually have, I would say, more of an informal process of departmental relationships, but connecting the student and also identifying someone in a department. For example, financial aid is one of them that we work with very closely with this population. And to have a name for a student to connect with at the department makes it a lot easier for them to gain access. And so one strategy, if it was a formal process, is talking to your supervisor or your department coordinator around who can we identify as a point person in that office in each department, whether it's financial aid, academic support, tutoring, student activities. Who can that student go to, and that can be a liaison for the student. Okay, so Carmen's going to talk about the actual program.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. We're just going to talk a little bit about our BEST program here. It's the Family Economic Security Program. However, there may be other programs, and you can pick up some things here. There's questions and answers at the end here. So it's a program for building student success, and again, it's all about the students. And so we have a model and we try to follow it, and we have coaches and we do some career and some financial, some life academics from the experience that we've had with other students, the connections we've made with other departments. We do retreats so we can bring the students in and they can get a feel for this, community events, all kinds of things. However, I just want you to know that we're not so stringent that we follow this and we can't help a student who walks in at 5:30 at night and is looking to get an emergency fund because his or her car just broke down. And the program director has gone home, deservedly so. On time. And so all of a sudden, this student's situation is an emergency that can really impact the rest of the semester, if not the rest of her time at school, or no time at school, based on that. So what do? So we throw the motto out the door and we say, what can we do? Fill out this emergency fund, let's get the application in. I'll be your contact person. I'll give it to her when she comes in the morning. We'll call you, we'll make it happen. And hopefully in a week's time, this is resolved so that that student doesn't miss a whole semester of class, or let's say 3 weeks of class, or even a week of class, right? Because that could be her test period, her review period, his review period. And then it's all on from there. Students' 5-minute situation can turn into a lifetime of disaster. And we are here to support students, and we have to kind of come back to that, what can we do to help students? For FESP, I'm glad to say that we've recruited 50 in the first year. We're going to grow it from about 400, maybe more, in 4 years. We already have a 97% student success rate, which is real exciting. They're required to have the monthly meetings, and we have financial coaching meetings going on. Again, we use the proactive approach. We use whatever works, depending on the situation. And if you're from a community college even, you know that an emergency happens in a minute's time. So again, we have to be extremely flexible with the situation that comes at hand. That's what it's all about. We have retreats for professional development and community building. We make personal connections. We have to remind ourselves on a daily basis not to act so shocked when you hear something, right? Because if the student's releasing information, how we react to that may tell whether they'll either come back or finish their story. The navigation on campus, it could be very, I was one of those students. There was no such thing as vocabulary. In my house, it was all work. That was the vocabulary, go to work. So when I came on campus, I really didn't know, I had no idea what anything was, what anything meant. I asked 2 or 3 times the same questions. It was just very odd for me. And it was odd to people because they thought, well, you are at college, aren't you? But I had no idea. And then we have the financial partnership with FCCF, Fund for Women and Girls. We're grateful. Those are pictures of our great FEP students for this year, or some of them at least. Being placed in the correct location in the department and reporting to someone who is flexible is key. Now, you may not have a choice anymore, right? Because you're already in your department. But you have to find someone that you can go to that has the mission vision, I call it. And it's someone who believes in the mission but has the vision to get there, right? The Family Economic Security Program does try to follow a what, why, how, where, who, and when, and we try to do everything, again, in order, and we have a plan. But as Alana usually says, sometimes we have to throw that out the door. And I couldn't leave without adding this. Building relationships on campus. How can you build relationships? I've been able to build relationships for 20 years because I bribe people with my mom's rice and beans. However, what's your specialty? Do you like to bring cannolis to work? Make a contact with that person. Connect with them, because I found that the 20 years that I connected with people have come in very handy for the success of FEST program.
Is the program just for females? What is the percentage males to females? About 50 participants?
We don't discriminate on the basis of gender. Right now, our program has 3 males and 47 females.
And I asked because we're trying to launch a male minority initiative, and it's so much harder to get the males to come to the program.
It is.
There you go,
And
47 to 3.
One of the guys who is in the program, when I interviewed him, said, I'm so glad this is a program, because I couldn't ask for any one of these pieces on its own, because I can't ask for stuff, but since you're like, I have to do all of this to get this, now I can get all this help. So yeah, that's definitely an issue. So I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and the keynote speaker said, our systems are perfectly designed to produce the results they're achieving. And I thought if we do not like our results, we need to go back and look at the system, because we're not going to change the results without changing the system that created them. And I'm going to start, in terms of a strategy, with data. And the number one reason I'm starting with data is because I'm a massive geek. I'm self-identifying. I feel no stigma. But also, to me, this is a building block for the rest of what I'm going to talk about. Do you know your students? Do you know what your achievement gaps are? Do you know where those key points are where you're losing people? Because that's how you can prioritize. Data is never going to solve your problem, but it can help you identify what that problem really is rather than making some guesses. Lindsay and Carmen have both talked about finding your allies, and I would continue that theme here. Finding your allies in administration, finding your allies in your foundation, finding your allies in the greater community. We don't have all the resources to do everything we want to do, so how do we make sure that we're finding the right people who understand the issue or can be swayed by all that data you've collected? So when you're making that connection with your foundation, to look at your money strategically. Are you doing traditional scholarships? Is it just based on the grades that student got last semester? Is it just looking at tuition and books? Or are you starting to look at the fact that the cost of college isn't just tuition and books, it's the childcare so they can be there. It's the transportation to get them here. It's the lost wages when they're taking the time to do this. And the more that we can understand the lives of our students, the better we can address it here. PESP has been very successful with our emergency funds, and it's not even that so many people have applied for them, but them knowing that it's there is making a huge difference. So when somebody has a car breakdown and we can get them a couple $100s quite quickly, that keeps them in the seat, and that's what's going to get them to graduation. Because it can be those little small things that can trip people up. You can also look at things like holds. I know, revolutionary, we've actually sent out a survey to our students to ask what their financial needs are. So again, we're not just guessing what they are, hoping that we know, but actually hearing directly from the students. Process audit. I'm going to tell you not to use jargon. I'm sorry, now here I'm using one. But looking at everything you do through your students' eyes. When I was interviewing one student for the FEST program, she said to me, and I quote, "It's like this place is designed to mess me up." Well, that's not what you want to hear. So how can you go through all your publications, your processes, and look at what your assumptions are? Do you assume that every student has a laptop? Do you assume that every student has internet at home? When we put up our winter closing announcement, it says every student should check their Blackboard page for their courses to check for updates. Well, that is making the assumption that they're not getting their internet access here at the college or at the local library, both of which are closed because it's snowing. So all those things are reinforcing that message that the people that belong here have these things. And we know that so many of our students that are low income, that are first generation, feel like they're coming into a foreign country when they land here. They feel like this is the whole language they have to learn, all these social norms they have to learn. There's so much extra to learn beyond what they actually need in their studies. And every time we use that jargon, how much do we love words that derive from the Latin? What does a bursar mean? Somebody comes to me and says, blah, blah, blah. I say, oh, you need to see the bursar. And they're like, no, I just need to see the guy that I need to pay. Yeah, I know. Still, straight down that hallway. So every time a student sees the word that they don't get, every time we are making that assumption that they have a laptop at home, they're being reminded that they don't belong here. And it's so much easier then for them to drift away. And another student, Marie, who, she's got 2 kids, they're involved in a million activities, she's working multiple jobs, and she wrote to me one day and she said, this is why single moms drop out. She is an online student. She had called in to one of our campus resources to ask for help. They told her she had to come in, to make an appointment, to come in the next week to get that resource. Now, what she heard was, I have to forego wages to come in, to make an appointment, to come in next week to get what I really need. Now, that wasn't even our policy when I went and talked to that department. It just happened to be how the person who was at the front desk at that moment thought they were supposed to do. But the message she heard was, you don't belong here. This place is really for traditional students who do things the traditional way. We shouldn't have students who feel like they're in some kind of an epic struggle, the college versus the student, to see who's going to be successful. If they're successful, we're successful. Opting out versus opting in. A lot of our resources that we have on campus assume that the student is going to come, find us, and ask for the resource. Now that makes a couple of assumptions. One is the student knows that we have that resource. We just did the survey. Half the things students are asking for in terms of resources, we already have. So they have to know that we have a resource. And number 2, they have to know out of all the doors on campus, which one to knock on to ask for it. The other day I offered a student a service and he went, I've been here a couple years, I knew there had to be someone who knew how to do that. But when you ask 3 people and they don't know, you kind of give up on those things. So helping to make sure that our resources are available to everyone and that we have less barriers for people to find them. In FEST, we have a drawer. It's full of granola bars, it's full of water bottles. We don't say, come and tell us if you haven't eaten today. Come and tell us if you're about to go to a class and you're not going to be able to concentrate because your stomach is rumbling. You walk in the door, you get a granola bar. Because we spend a lot of time working on policing access, but for every person that you stop taking advantage of that service, you're pushing so many people away in terms of access. So what can we flip on its head? If you have a food pantry, how can we make it available to everybody? And then those students who choose to use it, that's great. But rather than having to fill out more paperwork and turn us into a police force for our resources. Community partnerships. There are a lot of resources that we want to be able to give our students. We can't afford to give them all. We know that, right? But who are the people out there in your communities who can help you? Well, as I've been setting up the FESP, I've been out in the community and there's been people who said, I've been dying to get on that campus for years. I'm so glad now I know who to call to get on campus. I've got people who want to do financial coaching on campus. How can you be co-writing grants with some of the community partnerships to get more of those resources on campus rather than us trying to do it all ourselves? Who's on your larger team in the community? And to me, it all comes down to this idea of culture. How do we remove the isolation for our students who are low income, first generation? How do we normalize economic diversity on our campuses? How do we not assume that everyone has a buffer or can pull out a credit card when there's an extra few dollars to put on? I love the sign in our library. Please interrupt me. Your request is more interesting than what I'm doing. Because if it's not working for our students, it's just plain not working. So, now we're going to put you to work. We have a handout. The Lumina Foundation put together a great resource called Beyond Financial Aid. And the first part is a lovely report, and the last part is a self-assessment quiz that I love. It has some great questions that put us on the hot spot, looking at how we're doing things, the assumptions we have on our campuses. So if everybody could sort of grab 2 or 3 people, preferably from your own campus, so you can look at your own campus, but if not, we know we won't get through this whole thing, but we're going to give you about 7 minutes to take a look. And then we'll question you
We
in.
made it up for each. Yeah.
Ginny, you can take one for your record.
Take it off? Alright.
Whoops. How to manage that, I don't know. Okay. Not coordinated today.
How you doing? Very fast enough. I'm sorry. Here. Doing lights. You get stuck at a parking stage where I feel put together. Parking yeah, there's a fire around 8, quarter of 8, something like that. Yeah, there's a parking lot. So you got lucky. I live in North Haven. Yeah, in the top. Oh wow. That's southern lot. So I don't know. Well, let's take a shot. So, I'm the chair of the command department of the School of Business. Yeah.
How many our local businesses are working? No, we don't.
Yeah, so yes for all this, right?
So perhaps maybe someone needs pathway or workplace.
I think it's, I mean,
Yeah, I'm actually so far removed from this stuff, I have no idea. It's not my area at all.
yes.
For you, it's
Oh, okay.
The other thing is we're definitely right now. So it's not in full effect. Look at it, and sit it next to it. All right.
That our students I know that they are process and the times that companies by the time we or register for classes until we start. I just think the process that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the things that I said that might be understand the whole cost of attending in a different way to pay for
I think I probably said this to you when I saw
the difference between and I think we're saying this getting the information and receiving the information and understanding the information. And it goes back to
I think that's kind of what it is. Getting right
We have 1 minute to go. 1 minute to go.
that's why I'm saying for the most part, may not understand the cultural background and so it's not reflective of individual social history, institutions.
I hope this was productive and I hope the conversation continues. Do you guys have any questions for us or any questions for Jenny or
Hi, everybody.
Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me.
any questions? Well, let's just say.
Does anyone want to share what your groups talk about? Any takeaways, points, take-homes? Yes?
Prior to that, I'd like to just make a comment. I just find that it was very interesting in our conversation, coming to the table with different backgrounds and different departments, our perspectives. And so looking at it from what we may do in departments versus the institution as a whole, and the results of, that we're seeing from our students was very eye-opening. Thus, we didn't finish the whole packet, but and also to piggyback on that, I will say that if we go through, starting on, page 2, the first self-assessment, is that what your question was, to share what we saw?
If you had any results you want to share.
Oh, yeah, any points that you wanted to touch on or share? Like ahas?
Oh, one aha for us goes back to what I mentioned, was with the difference between whether or not the information is made available or provided to students and whether the students understand. Because under empowering students on page 3, we engaged in some discourse around the information being provided to students. And then, but the bullet says, my students at my institution understand the full. That phrase there, the understanding and the loss in translation, and you talk about the jargon and the...
Well, and even like we experience a lot of our students don't even know you can appeal your financial aid decision.
Right.
So we've got all the things in place, but students don't know that they can do that, and it makes a big difference.
Well, again, you're saying they don't know that they can appeal. Yes, they can, and the information is there.
Right.
They just need to...
There's a gap in
Or,
between.
yes. If they fill out the paperwork, yes, we will
Yeah.
review it. But again, that's where the disconnect is.
Any other
The
groups?
information is there.
Well, and just the difference between the information being there and
Yeah.
putting the information out, and how much of that, I teach first year introduction at Eastern. I know that the information is there, but a lot of it, you've got to go back over and over and over again. Like, do you know the name of that large building with all the books? It's right over there. Have you been there? May I take you there?
Hey, walking students places is really important with us, yeah.
I was on a committee and I've kept this all year and it's helped me. Somebody answered a question, said students walk in, they don't really see a department, they just see the college. And that made me think, because I say, well, they're asking me about the bursar's info, I'm the registrar. But I get it, you know, they're not looking at the sign that you have over the head, they're looking in and they're saying, you are X college or you are X university. So that should be automatic, but it wasn't always. So you make it more automatic to say, no, I am not the program director, but let me walk you over, this is who she is. Or I'm not financial aid, I'm not sure, but let me walk you over, someone there may be able to help you. They just see a college as a whole, they don't really see departments.
We, at CCSU, we do have a brochure, every staff, and we went to a workshop in which you don't have to know all the departments and what they do by memory, but if someone calls you and asks you a question, you have that reference in printed and in the online that you refer, then you give them a precise person and number to call.
Having a name versus just go down to X makes a huge difference. Yeah, we find that with our FEST students, I don't think my FEST students even know that I have a last name. I don't know, Jenny. And we're trying to be just really human with them, because particularly with students that are coming from a background that, you know, they see us, oh, you have this education, you have the, and just to help them to know that, no, I don't know everything, or yeah, my car's broken down too. Like those kind of human and personal connections just help them to get that we're all in this together. And Jenny, do you have any comments to add?
They're just very approachable, and any type of problem that I have, whether it's financial or personal or even schoolwork, they're always there and open to listen to me and help me out. So they've been a real big help with my college experience.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
So I was a former freshman student at Norwalk Community College, and I just remember having one person I could email and ask anything, and just having an answer. And I think a lot of times now working there, students just want someone they can get in contact with. So they'll ask the question, and so I'm like, I'm learning too, I'll walk you across the street. And I think that makes a huge difference, thinking from the student's point of view.
Versus it's not me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And feeling that connection with another person is important.
I think one of the things that we discussed at our table was similar to what my colleague mentioned. Some of the wording kind of messed us up because we weren't sure yes or no when it says all of our students or everyone knows. Because I think we have different cohorts of students who know things, but then we have a lot of students who are not knowledgeable about some of the services that the college provides, which lets us know we still have work to do.
Right, the consistency of the student experience is tough, especially with a lot of part-time students and community students.
I'm going to add one experience that just popped into my head from yesterday. You know, we're talking about all the challenges and the difficulties, and we should be opting out rather than opting in. And yesterday I had the reverse experience where a student was admitted to a program at Yale, and my position had ended, so my office was empty. And she bumped into me 24 hours later, and she burst into tears. And she said, I couldn't find you, and I'm so happy. Right? So we need to support them in their successes, not just in their challenges, and make ourselves accessible to the successes too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, most of the schools in the state have what's called bridge programs, transition programs, where they bring students onto campus, where they reach out to high schools. And it's pretty clear from various research studies that the more students are exposed to the any given campus, campuses in general, and learning what the bursar is. And let's find a different name for that. Let's ask some students, invent a different term. The more they know about what's on campus, it just stands to reason by the time they get there, they won't feel like they're walking into a battle zone.
Demystifying it. Anyway, I don't want to keep you guys from lunch. I have some cards up here. Feel free if you want to grab one. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me or Medina or Lindsay. I have a slide.